We are Break Cycles. We are delighted that you have taken the opportunity to join us. So prepare yourselves for this week's teaching and equipping session. Get ready to be educated, equipped, and set free as you listen to this week's broadcast. And thank you for joining us.
Hey, Dream Family. I am Kai Cunningham. I'm coming to you from Chattanooga with a broadcast tonight for Truth Tuesday. I'm working the back end and the front end at the very same time. So bear with me. For those of you who are joining for the first time and you're going, what is DREEMM? DREEMM stands for Deliverance, Restoration, Education, and Empowerment for Me Ministry. We are located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Our address is 636 Northland Blvd. We have services on Sunday morning from 9 to 10 for 1 hour. You can either join us online or you can join us in person. We also have men's empowerment on Monday nights. On Tuesday nights, we meet here for Truth Tuesday. We have marriage enrichment the first Friday of every month. And then we have another that's virtual for the third Friday of every month is virtual. We have Sister, which is every third Monday. This is when the women get together and we talk. But tonight, I am going to jump right into what we are going to discuss tonight. First of all, this is just going to be a very casual conversation where we're just going to talk about the difficulties, facing difficult challenges to gain wisdom. Facing difficult challenges to gain wisdom. Anybody who knows me knows I love talking to leaders. Like, it's my favorite thing to do. And having conversation just around some of the things that you experience on the leadership side of being in an organization or running an organization for business owners, or specifically within your home. Because if you're in the home, you're in your leadership position, whether it's leading the children, leading your spouse, whatever it is leading. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about, the challenges that you come into contact with or that you face when in these leadership positions and how we use those challenges to gain wisdom. So before I get started, I want to just start with the Webster's definition of wisdom first. And in the Webster's dictionary, I can't even talk tonight. The Webster unabridged dictionary defines wisdom as knowledge and the capacity to make due use of it. So it is the capacity to take knowledge and make use of it to create wisdom. I want to take it a step further. A few weeks ago, Darren, for 2 weeks straight, he talked about wisdom and knowledge. And he talked specifically about how knowledge is just knowing something. You know how to do it. Wisdom is I've gained the knowledge of it, and I've also been challenged, and that's where I had experience or backing, and that's what caused me to grow into wisdom in that area. The example I'd like to give for tonight, just about that situation, would be my grandmother. I don't know about y'all family, but I got a lot of chefs and cooks in my family. It's great for me because I am not the person who goes in the kitchen and get great pleasure from cooking. I just don't. I do like it. It's relaxing sometimes. But for the most part, I'm not the one on Pinterest looking up new recipes going, oh, I'm gonna try that. I'm not the one on YouTube looking at the new food crave that everybody's trying. I'm just not that person. Nothing wrong with that, but that ain't my mojo. However, I do have family members that do love to cook. I mean, absolutely love it. And I love eating at their table. So there's not a problem. I feel like this is a win-win relationship. So for New Year's, I went back home. For those of you who don't know what back home is, my family is in Cincinnati, Ohio. My grandparents is, and so are my a few cousins and my aunt. And so for Christmas, I went home for a week just to spend some time with them. And for New Year's, my grandmother wanted to do a big dinner for the family. And because I was staying with her, she's like, you're going to help me cook dinner. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do this. Let's go in the kitchen. I don't know if you guys have the chefs in the kitchen who don't measure a single thing. Like, don't measure salt, don't measure sugar, they don't measure nothing. They just go in the kitchen. I know what it should look like because I've cooked this dish a lot. So when I'm making it, I don't have to measure. I just know I know exactly how much sugar to put in there because I've done this before. I know exactly how much salt to put in there because I've done this before. I know what season is to put in there because I've done this before. So they're working from experience. That's what I want you to get. They're working from experience. Now, for somebody who's a newbie who has no experience in the kitchen or does not cook as often as those family members do, you may still need to measure some things. You may still need to go by the recipe and look things over. Some of you may even go get videos. Let me see how this chef is making it, and I'm watching how she's doing it, so I'm doing it at the same time. Now, that I actually do like to do. I like to be in the kitchen and watch the videos of the person cooking while I'm cooking it, because for me, that is relaxing. But it may not be relaxing for everyone. So experience may look different to different people. Doesn't mean that experience is not important, because what you must take away from this before we get into everything is you must be challenged. You must be challenged. And experience to get challenged, that is where experience comes from, in the areas where we are challenged in. See, sometimes in leadership roles, I think some people think it's easy when you're the boss. It is not. The issues that you face, the things you have to overcome, some of the things that you're dealing with, you have never dealt with them before, and you maybe have not dealt with them as an independent contributor. An independent contributor is someone who works inside of a company, but I am not responsible for any of the team members doing any of the work. I'm only responsible for my job. I come in, I do my job, I leave for the day. In a leadership role, you are over everyone who is responsible or reporting up to you. And sometimes the challenges that come along with it may be things that you haven't faced before, or things that you haven't encountered in your previous life. Like, for instance, earlier on, I owned a staffing firm. And I loved owning a staffing firm, but I had a team of people that reported to me. So for the first time in my life, I was responsible for payroll for these employees. And that may seem like a small gist, like girl, all you gotta do is calculate the numbers. No, but when you're an independent business owner, it is your responsibility to ensure that the money is even in the account so that the employees can get paid. And when you're dealing with working with outside customers or clients, you're on their pay schedule. So whenever we get around to paying you, whether that's 10 days after the job, whether that's 30 days after the job, for some people it's 90 days. I talked to a friend of mine who started a staffing firm a few years ago. Actually, no, it's more than a few years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I know he was super excited about it, but he took on a client and he was specifically staffing for the IT industry. And he said with this client, he had brought in this candidate, they were payrolling the candidate, and they were already $90,000 in the hole because the client had not paid them yet. The candidate still got to go to work. You still sending letters to the client to pay you, but you're $90,000 in the hole because you're still waiting on payment. That is a challenge that I was not ready for when it came to owning my own business, was just trying to work through and maneuver through that conversation, or maneuver through that relationship, and how do you keep the client engaged while at the same time making sure and keeping the client happy, but we gonna need that money. So that was a new challenge for me as a business owner and as a leader. What I learned in that, because I'm telling you, it was a stressful time, but what I learned in that was I was strong enough for it, and I learned to find unique solutions to that problem without taking myself further into debt. Because what you tend to want to do is to borrow more money to pay off the debt, but now the debt has grown and you're borrowing more money to pay off that debt, and that debt has grown. And so it just continues to exceed where you needed to, where you initially started off at. So in leadership, we have to look at the problems and be able to find the solution to that problem by looking at it from different angles or new perspective. And sometimes in facing those challenges, it may make you either want to run from it or run towards it, depending on which lenses you're wearing when you're looking at the problem that you're facing. For instance, you may encounter, even if I'm going back to the analogy of my grandmother, I have to believe there were times where she may not have had enough money or enough income to be able to buy the ingredients that she needed to make the recipes for her family. Especially when you think about major holidays, every holiday, every Thanksgiving, we would get together and go to my grandmother's house. And regardless to whether there was a shortage of milk or eggs or whatever, she had to figure out for herself, how do I still make this dinner for my family with needing this? Whether it's I don't have enough revenue to be able to provide this year, whether it's there's a shortage of this or there's not enough that, or I forgot to pick this up or I didn't grab that, she still had to make sure that dinner was on the table. It's all about perspective. I remember when I was younger and my mother, I am the second oldest of 5 children. All of my siblings by my mother are all boys. I am the only girl. So when it was dinner time, she would say to me, go downstairs and figure out what to cook for your brothers. And I would go down to the kitchen, y'all, and I would open the cabinet in the refrigerator and I would literally stand there for 10 minutes because none of the things in that refrigerator in my young mind made sense to go together. And I'm like, we ain't got no food. Ain't nothing I can do. A sandwich, which y'all want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Because that's about all I can make out of what's here. Nothing goes together. And so I would go upstairs and go, Mom, there's nothing to cook because there's not enough food in the house and there's nothing for me to put together to be able to make a meal. And she would literally go in the kitchen for a few minutes and take out a few things. And by the time she was done, it would be a whole dinner on the table. I never understood how she could go in there and figure this out with just the bare minimum that we had in the kitchen. But that was because of experience. See, when I hadn't had a lot, I had to figure out how to make do with what I did have. And because of that, now I can go into areas where there's not a lot and be able to figure how to make do with that. That was her experience. So for somebody who had never been through that experience or never been challenged in that area, I was looking at it going, there's nothing to do here. See, don't negate your experience and try to compare yourself to somebody else, because what you've been through, what you've endured, what you've overcome has prepared you for the unique challenges that you will face, where someone else facing those same challenges may not come out of it the same way you come out of it, may not have the same outcome or solution, and may not be able to solve the problem and be able to see an answer the way you can. It's because of the things that you went through that have prepared you for the next level. See, there are benefits to challenges. And if you're not careful and you're always backing down or running from a challenge, you never face your Goliath. See, that's the reason why when we look at the story of David and we see him facing Goliath, everybody else is shaking in their boots and everybody else is scared and nobody's going out there to challenge him. Yet this young boy from out in the field who has no military experience is walking up and boldly saying, this uncircumcised Philistine, I'm not backing down to him. I'm not running from him. Oh my God, y'all letting him talk to us like that? The Lord is on our side. And so his whole conversation was so much different than all of the other soldiers. But that's because the experience that David went through before he got to this point. He went through the experience of facing the lion. He may have been scared in the moment he faced the lion, but he boldly stepped up to him in order to fight the lion and defeat him. And when he fought the bear, he learned something new. I learned new technique. I don't have to run. So by the time he got to Goliath, I faced the bear and I faced the lion. So you're nothing to me. Facing you doesn't make me run or doesn't make me shake in my boots. See, when you're challenged, you come out with new vision. You also come out with you come out stronger than before you went into it. You come out with the ability to endure in some difficult situations that you weren't able to endure in previously. In situations that would have caused you to cower or back down or be scared, you come out of it bold and you come out glad and you come out strong. It's like going into a gym and lifting weights. You know, the first time you go in, you probably can't lift that much. I'm just talking about me. I'm not talking about nobody else. I couldn't lift that much the first time I went to the gym, and I was trying to run on the treadmill, and I just need to walk. I can't run yet. And then walking around the block, it was just I was out of breath. But over time, because I had been doing it so much, it was nothing to me. It was nothing walking around the track multiple times, and then you start to be able to pick up speed and momentum because you've been doing it so much. And so now you're starting to see the results of being challenged, of challenging yourself and putting yourself in difficult situations. Think about all the challenges that you went through in your life. One of the things I did with my team a few weeks ago is I had them take a piece of paper, and I don't have it on my desk, and I had them fold it in half. And on one side of the piece of paper, I asked them to put down every change that they had experienced on the job in the past year. And so they jot down all of the things that they've noticed in the past year that they went through, the experiences or changes on the job. I said, on the other side of the paper, I want you to put down all the changes that you had experienced in the past year in your personal life. And as they were writing them down, they start to realize, like, oh my God, I went through changes in both places. You did. And those changes taught you something that you can endure. And keep in mind, you're going through the changes at work at the same time you're going into your personal life. And so it becomes like work becomes that one thing that happened at work, that one person who yelled at you, that one person who argued with you, that one person who gave you a challenging moment, that one assignment that almost took you over the edge. That's really just the catalyst to the problem, or it's really just the straw that broke the camel's back, because that was just one thing out of all the other pieces that you were doing around the same time. And I said, and after this, in this end of this year, at this 1 year mark, because it's been 1 year that I've been in my role, so that I've worked with them for 1 year. I said, what you learn from this is what you're able to endure. When you thought it was going to break me, you still kept going. When you thought I couldn't take anymore, you still kept going. When you felt like throwing in the towel, you still kept going. The challenge that you faced yesterday is just a memory to you today. When you thought yesterday, oh my gosh, I'm never going to make it through that thing. And then to be at a position or a place today where you're able to go, ooh, that wasn't all that bad. Because you're in the new challenge. You're looking at the next Goliath that's even bigger than the one you faced before. And so now you're going, it wasn't that serious. It wasn't that bad. See, that's the thing about going through challenges, is that you're able to look at it with new vision. So now when I face that problem again, I'm able to think back to the lion and the bear that I fought before. I'm able to think back and remember all the things that God brought me through before. And so when I praise him and I celebrate now that I'm facing a challenge and I'm praising God, it's because I know I got through it back then. God brought me through all of that. So when I'm facing this problem, I'm shouting in advance because I know God's going to bring me through this too. I know God is going to walk me through this. One of the things that Apostle Deborah Edwards talks about that I think is just amazing is her story about when she was dealing with cancer. And how she was able to come out of that situation and how God delivered her. And her prayer at that time was just, God, I want the doctors to cut me open, but I don't want anything to be there. And that's exactly what God did. And she tells a story about how another woman, they were having a revival, and that woman was going through a cancer diagnosis. And she kept saying, if that lady comes, if I just see that lady, if I can just lay eyes on that lady. See, her testimony began to be the thing that that woman was holding on to, because she's like, if God did it for her, then I know God is going to do it to me, and he's going to do it for me. That's really what your challenge becomes. It becomes your testimony. It becomes your thing that you tell people, God did it in my life, so I'm living proof that God is still working out miracles today at this moment, that God is still in the deliverance ministry, that God is still in the breakthrough ministry, that God is still in the overcoming ministry, that God is still in the healing ministry, that God is in the breakthrough ministry. Whatever you're holding on to or you're waiting for God to do, you now know that God can do it. And that person who needed to hear that God can do it is waiting on you to show up. So that's why you can't back down when you start to see the challenges, or you start to see the issues that rise up, because you're starting to realize that I'm gonna gain wisdom from this. Oh, I'm coming out of this thing wise. I'm coming out of this thing better than I went into it. I'm coming out of this thing stronger than when I went into it. I'm coming out of this thing with some gifts that I didn't have when I went into it. I'm coming out of this thing with new tools. Let's dig in that for a second. One of the things I always say to my recruiters is I want to make sure that I give you an arsenal of tools that you can use to be able to face the challenges of identifying talent for our organization. And so in order to do that, to ensure that you get these tools, I need to make sure that I'm giving you new skill set. I'm training you. I'm developing you. I need to make sure that you are not just getting a tool and you have it in your toolbox, but you don't know how to use it. See, in my household growing up, we didn't have a toolbox. What we had was when we need to nail something on the wall, you had a high heel or you go get if we had a hammer, we may have had a hammer, but that was it. And that one tool began to be the thing that you use for multiple purposes because we didn't have everything that we need. So we learned to make do with what we had. So when I got married, I tell the story of my husband came with a toolbox. And so in his toolbox is different arsenals for different jobs. So if I need to do this, then I need this tool to do that. Hey, hand me that Allen wrench. I don't even know what that is. Well, I do that now because he done taught me. But at the time, I didn't know. And so I would go, well, what does this do? Or what does that do? That's because he had to teach me how to use the different tools. And every tool has a unique purpose in order to get the job done. So that's how I want you to look at experience. Experience is me gaining another tool that I can use to get the job done at a later date. So when this problem comes up or occurs, I now know, oh, I need to get this tool out of my toolbox because that's going to help me to knock down this wall. I need to get this tool out because this is going to help me to do this. I need to grab this tool because you are slowly gaining more arsenal in your toolbox with every experience or every challenge you face. So I don't necessarily feel like backing down. I know I got a tool for that. Oh, devil, that's how you coming at me? I got a tool for that. And don't you remember the last time you came at me this way, I grabbed a new tool? I'm going to get a new tool from this. I'm coming out of this wise. I'm coming out of this with new arsenal. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to gain a new skill set. What does that mean, Kyle? What does gaining a new skill set mean for me? It means that while I'm going through this challenge, while I'm experiencing this, I am learning something new that I can use later on. Whether it's the testimony that's going to not only be the thing that keeps me motivated and running, or it's the testimony that somebody else is going to use. Or it's a new skill set. So when the problem comes back and it's a little evolved, because sometimes it doesn't come back the same way it went out the last time that you faced that challenge. Sometimes it's changed just a little bit, but you got to be able to recognize, this is the same thing. This is the same weapon. One of the things my mom always said, and my grandmother always said, the devil is not making new things. It's nothing new under the sun. Everything is something that's been done before. They may have put a little bell on it or another little whistle on it, but it's the same old, same old. There is no new sin. It's the same old. We just giving it a new name or putting something, a little spin on it. So with the enemy still using the same weapons that he used on your family before, because I realized this is why the importance of knowing your generational curses and knowing your generational blessings and geneograms. That is one thing that we at DREEMM, we teach. And our Deliverance class is going through that right now. And the importance behind that is this. If I don't know what tripped up my great grandmother, the enemy can still use that weapon to trip me up. It worked in your bloodline in your past, it's possibly going to work on you. So I don't have to create something new with you because you don't know what tripped up great grandma because we kept it a secret and we don't talk about it anymore and we buried it so deep in the family lineage. I can use that same weapon to come after you. Well, when you go through challenges, it is like the enemy is being exposed and you are now able to see with new vision. So when you come across that problem again, you're going to have to use your memory. I might need you to bring it back to my recollection, God, so that I don't keep falling over the same obstacles and the same traps that tripped up mom, dad, grandma, granddad, uncle, auntie, cousin. I'm not doing the same thing they're doing. God, I need you to make sure that I recognize it. So when I see it, I don't fall. And I'm gonna need you to keep me in order so I don't allow my emotions to overtake me when I face that problem. And so I break down instead of worship. That needs to be my first weapon that I pull out of my arsenal. Let me start worshiping God, because I'm going to praise you right now while I'm looking at this problem, this big situation, this big obstacle. While I'm looking at it, I'm worshiping you right now. I'm not going to wait till you bring me out. I'm going to wait. I'm going to do it right now, right in the midst of it. So the enemy is going to get tired of messing with me, because every time he messes with me, I get into worship. Apostle talked about how in her old home on Bruner Drive, how the enemy was bothering her. So she would just go in the living room and just start preaching. And she said, I don't care. The devil, I would tell him all the time, if you going to stay here, you going to hear this word. Demons, if you going to come up in here trying to mess with me, you going to get this word. And so no matter what comes at me, you get in word. We have got to use our arsenal and our tools just like that, just like word. I had a situation that occurred at work recently where a particular manager was getting out of character during a meeting. And I immediately got frustrated because I'm like, and I immediately got frustrated. And then I start to think about it. My husband is so fantastic, y'all. He, this is our new home, our new office. He put motivational messages that I had bought over the years, like little signs, and he put them in different areas of my office. You see one behind me, but they're in different places in my office. And one of the reasons why he did that was so when you start to get frustrated, you would look at these messages and it would be the reminder for you to celebrate. So across from my desk is a message that says, I still remember the days I prayed for all the things I have now. And so I saw that first. And then I thought about where these messages are. They require me to not look down, but to look up. And that scripture came to my mind, or my recollection is, I will look unto the hills from which cometh my help cometh from the Lord. So I will look up. And so I was like, okay, it's just like God was talking to me in that meeting. Look up to where your help comes from. Your help doesn't come from here. Your help comes from me. And then God began to remind me of all the blessings that he had given me. And that no matter what was happening at work or what was happening in that moment, I still blessed you. I still got you. I still have a plan for you. I have a purpose for you. You still have all these things to be thankful for. And so I began to thank him for those things at the end of that meeting. Like, God, I thank you for this. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for keeping me. And I thank you for this. And I begin to look at that sign that says, I still remember the days I prayed for all the things I have now. Because in the midst of the challenge, you need something to remind you to go into worship. In the midst of gaining that experience, I need something that's that trigger to go into worship so I don't get caught up in the emotions that I'm feeling. Because it would have been easy for me to get out of character too in that meeting, which is so not like me. It would have been easy for me to do that. But what I had to do was remember, this ain't me. This is emotion. And I'm going to stamp this down. I'm going to tap this down while I focus on where God is calling me to. So you guys, that is the Truth Tuesday for today. I just wanted to talk a little bit about wisdom and how you need both knowledge and experience to get to the wisdom. And experience comes in the form oftentimes of a challenge or an obstacle or something that you have to overcome. It can look like an adversary. It can look like the enemy, and it really can be God looking for a way to deliver you, God looking to bring you out of this thing. And I'm challenging you in this area because you are going to need that tool. It's building you, it's developing you. So when you see obstacle, when you see challenge, when you face issues, when you face problems, instead of running, this is your sign to now begin to go into a worship. Let me go into a worship. Let me sit down with this for a minute. God, is this you? Is this you developing me? Is this you building me? Is this you taking something out of me? Because sometimes there's something in you that God didn't put there. And the way to expose it is to challenge you in an area so you now can see, I ain't put that there. Sometimes it's God refining us. Refining, that's the word I want to use. He's refining you. And so I've got to cut off some pieces that are still not like me because you're not a reflection of me. So in order to do that, I've got to trim some areas off. I got to burn off some things. And oftentimes when you're going through the burn, the refining, it doesn't feel good. It hurts. It makes you cry. It's a lonely time because God will remove everything around you that takes you away from your attention from Him. And so sometimes you have to get quiet with it and just a silent prayer and a silent worship. God, let me focus on you. Bring my attention back to you. So this Tuesday night, like I said, this was a conversation for the leaders. This is just us talking. This is a conversation for you, for whoever is listening. Hopefully this has blessed your soul as it blessed mine, because as we always say at Dream, before we deliver a message, God will take you through a challenge first, and that message will be relevant to us first. And then God will expose some areas in us that still need to be developed before we bring the word to you. God, what do I need to glean from this? What do I need to receive? So I pray that you received the message tonight, and I pray that it's blessed you in your life. And if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to contact us at Dream. Our email, putting that on the screen, is dream002@gmail.com. Or feel free to visit our website, which again is www.dreem.org. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a blessed night, everybody. Bye, guys.